Hey, it's me, Jeff Keighley. That's right. It's the Game Awards are all a sham. I've disavowed them, and now I'm here on my real favorite podcast to talk about games of the year.
Oh yeah.
I want to point out that it's been 7 months since our last podcast.
I know.
That's not bad for us.
You're not wrong.
What was our last one? The E3 one?
No, we didn't have E3 this year.
No, the one we talked
our last
about
one was
E3 could do.
our predictions for basically the future of handheld gaming,
Oh, that's right.
where you and Holly once again go off on a big diatribe of something completely unrelated.
Holly and I will always go off on a diatribe on something. It's great.
In a podcast? I won't stand for it. Anyway, yes, it's that time of year again, and Jeff Keighley isn't here. We lied and fooled you all.
Damn, even I was fooled.
But we're picking our games of the year. So the way this works, well, first I guess we can start the way we usually do. What's everybody been playing?
Oh boy. Oh wait. Who's starting? Never mind.
I mean, if someone wants to start, you can just
Nathan
start.
spoke
Otherwise, I'll
first.
spin the wheel. That's
All
true.
right. What have I been playing recently? That's a fucking good question. Let me go look. Okay, so what I have been playing recently, as should come as no surprise to anyone, I have two of my usuals, or three of my usuals. No, two of my usuals. Star Wars Empire at War vs. Corruption, Hated Hat Dogs, Horseshoes, Hand Grenades. I've also been playing Divinity Original Sin 2 again recently. Fucking fantastic game. Lawrence Studios. This is the one that they did before Baldur's Gate. It's fucking great. Honestly, I do like it more than Baldur's Gate 3. But that's just
Whoa,
opinions.
look at you being all contrarian.
Look, hey, I was into them before they got popular, okay? And honestly, these people should have been popular a long time ago because their games are fucking great. I've also been playing XCOM 2 with the Long War of the Chosen mod. And I've been doing Halo Infinite, actually, now that their Firefight is out. It's good. I like it. And I have been doing... oh shit, what's it called? My brain is fucked. Right, it's Stellaris. There we go. That's what it was called. I had to look at Steam.
I keep thinking I should try XCOM because I feel like I'd probably like it. I've just never gotten around to it.
It's a fun... I enjoy them. They're... Well, of course I have to say I enjoy them because I'm pretty sure, and let me just look at my XCOM 2. Hey, how many hours do I have in this? Oh, just 700 hours. Yeah, so it's a fun game.
Good God.
And XCOM Enemy Unknown, which is the one before that with the Long War mod, I only have, 600 hours in, so it's a fun game.
I can't even imagine putting that much. Well, you know what? Having said that, if you total out from my entire life, I probably have close to that number in very specific games that I replay a lot. But that number, like I can't even imagine.
Just hearing it.
It's kind of chump change. So I latch on to games, and I'll usually play them a lot in my off time because what else the fuck am I supposed to do? So like Divinity Original Sin 2, which I mentioned. Guess how many hours I have in that game?
2.
More than 3. Damn it, Rob!
Well, both of you are way off the mark because currently I'm sitting at 1,378 hours.
That is more than 3, though.
It is more than 3, but a lot more than 3. But like, I don't know. I think like probably like 8 or 900 of those hours have literally just been in the GM mode because I love making games and going through games with people. So yeah. And like there are other games. Star Wars Emperor at War, I probably actually, if I have my full lifetime hours and not just the amount of time that I have on Steam, I probably have like 3,000 in. Because I played that game so much as a kid when I had just the disc. And The Sims 2, honestly, like Sims 3, Sims, I probably got like a good few thousand hours in that too. Sims 4 too, even though it's not as great, but it's still fun.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, getting over my fucking game hours. Who's next on talking about what they played recently?
Tom, what have you been playing?
Damn it! I was hoping if I was quiet, I wouldn't have to go next.
You fool.
So I'm really boring. I feel like every single podcast, it's the same game. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. So I have been playing Mass Effect again. I've been doing an insanity run. I've never done that before. And I got to Mass Effect 2, and it is so much more difficult than Mass Effect 1 was.
Yeah.
It's starting to get easier as I'm getting further in and I'm getting more upgrades, but holy hell, like Grunt's recruitment mission was tough. That took me a long time when it normally does not. So to be a little more interesting, but I'm not going to elaborate too much for reasons that'll come up later in this podcast.
Okay.
I recently started playing the remake of Metroid 2 on the 3DS, Samus Returns, I think. Yeah, Samus Returns. I haven't played it really since it like came out, and when it did come out, I don't think I finished it. Which is why if you watched our Metroid 2 playthrough, there's things like the lava having to descend as we kill Metroids that completely took me by surprise. That happens in the remake as well, but I don't know if I even got far enough to encounter that.
Okay.
When the remake came out, I was really disappointed that it was on the 3DS and not the Switch. I feel like that translated into my opinion of the game a little bit, because I did like it back then, but I didn't gravitate towards it the way I did when Dread came out. It just really confused me that Nintendo finally gave everybody the Metroid game they've been waiting for, but not on the platform they wanted it on. It's a very Nintendo move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were, at one point they were saying, oh yeah, the 3DS and the Switch are going to completely coexist. And I think that was kind of their last ditch effort at trying that.
They say that every time.
Yeah, and it never works.
They said that about the DS for the Game Boy Advance as well, and then the DS just completely took over.
Which is sad, because I love my 3DS.
Well, the 3DS is a great system. The thing is, though, like I don't really go out and about much anymore, so a handheld's appeal as being a handheld doesn't... It's not the selling feature for me anymore that it once was. It's convenient, but I still have my 3DS. I still have my Game Boy Advance and my Game Boy Color. If I'm going to be on a 10-hour flight, I still have the ability to whip out my Game Boy and play Pokemon Crystal for 10 hours. I don't really care about playing a game of the same quality of something like Breath of the Wild while I'm on a plane. That's cool, but what I'm trying to get at is I think about it differently now, especially because we record so much for our YouTube channel. There's so many times where I'll play a 3DS game or something and I'll be like, oh man, this would be great to play on the channel. Too bad I can't capture off of it. But if it's on the Switch, I can, because I can dock it and then capture off the HDMI output. So it becomes like this weird, I don't know. There's this part of me that every time I play my 3DS, it's fine. I like it just fine. But all of the games that I wish I could take and just play them on my television, I just can't. But the Switch kind of ruined me for that, where I can choose to sit on the couch with it while I have a podcast or something going. But then when I want to focus up on just that one game, I can dock it and play it on my television. And with something like the 3DS, I don't have that ability. So pretty much the second the Switch came out, it was like that meme from Toy Story where I dropped my 3DS on the floor and I don't want to play with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So something like a 2D Metroid game that I had been waiting for so long when it came out in, I think that was 2017. It felt so bizarre that they didn't just delay it a couple more months and get a Switch version and release it on both. It seemed really weird that it was just locked to 3DS. I'd be interested to hear if there was some sort of story behind that someday, if it was like, actually it was in development for a really long time and Nintendo just wanted it done kind of a thing.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah, that's really all I've been playing.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of have our usual games that we're always playing. So I'll skip over those. You can listen to any other episode for that.
What games have you played?
The main ones, as with like every other winter, been watching a lot of skiing and snowboarding. So that's got me in the mood to play some 1080. Mostly been playing the N64 one lately.
Did somebody cave and get Switch Online?
No, I've been just playing it on an emulator.
Oh, good boy.
So yeah, there's that. I also found there's one that's kind of been on my radar for a while, and it was finally on like a good sale. So otherwise, it's a $40 port of a mobile game.
Oh boy!
But it's called it's either Grand Mountain Adventure or Great Mountain Adventure. But it's like a little like skiing game where you have a bunch of different mountains. It kind of reminds me a lot of Lonely Mountains Downhill.
Okay.
That game looked fun when you guys played it.
It was a very fun game, yeah.
So yeah, for I think like $15 I picked it up for. It's really good. I've been enjoying that. And then the other one, just recently, is I've been getting back into Octopath Traveler. Because for a while I was thinking, oh man, I'm stuck on this one boss. I don't know. I should get into it, but man, that boss fight. And then I booted it up the other day and realized I'd actually beaten the boss. I was just like in the town afterwards waiting to go to the next place.
What, did you beat it in your sleep and just forget?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sleep Rob is like, I'm going to dunk on Waking Rob.
Look at this scrub. Can't even win a turn-based boss fight. But yeah, those are kind of the main ones for me.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I guess that means it's time to get into the main portion.
Woohoo.
So yeah, same rules as usual. We've got our game of the year, which is one that came out this year. We've got our belated game of the year, one that didn't come out this year, but that we played for the first time. And then we've got a runner-up and a winner for both categories.
Sounds good.
So we'll spin the wheel and see who's going to start with their runner-up for belated game of the year. Oh, I like this wheel a lot better. It doesn't have the, like... Okay, well, it has applause, but not ear-splittingly loud like the other one.
I liked it in past years when you'd occasionally hear Rob go, ah!
Yeah.
All right, so first up is Tom.
Aww.
Yes, Tom.
Which one's this one? Is this belated runner-up?
Yeah.
Okay, so this year I played basically no new games, both new and old. Luckily, I write down everything I play that's new to me, and put it in a Google Doc so that when we do this podcast, I can look at it and try to revisit in my head of how much I enjoyed each game and basically like where I was when I played it so that I can try to evaluate how much I enjoyed it compared to others. It's easy for games to get overshadowed when you play them in the beginning of the year and then you get used to games that came out like in November or something. So my belated game of the year, or a belated runner-up rather, sorry, is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the game.
Oh my god.
Because it is one of 2 games I played that fit this category. So it's actually not a bad game. It's very simple. I think I actually streamed it a long time ago, and I think Rob watched part of it.
Yeah.
It has that very early 2000s jank that has hit a point where in my life I consider it charming, but most modern gamers would probably find it very frustrating, and that's totally valid. Yeah, it's not a very deep game. It's attempting to tell the story based on the novel, not the film, because it was made by Vivendi Games, I think, and that was all part of the licensing deal at the time, was that they weren't allowed to make games based on the movies. EA had the license for that, which is why the other big Lord of the Rings titles are all EA games. It has 3 playable characters from what I remember. None of them control particularly well. Like, the game plays fine. It's kind of like a typical third-person action-adventure game. But from what I remember, playing as Frodo was really frustrating because there were stealth sections that didn't seem to work very well, and you'd get caught immediately with no explanation for why you even got caught. Playing as Strider, it had a lot more depth to it because the combat was really fun, but the combat was still, I would almost compare it to the Lego games where there's no like combos really. It's just kind of hit the attack button over and over until things die. And then the third playable character was Gandalf, which had an assortment of spells, but only one of them was useful. Yeah, one of them, actually 2 of them, I guess. One of them was a healing spell from what I remember, and then the other one was damage. And you had like 6 or 7 spells, and the rest of them had no reason to be there. They would do less damage than, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a fireball or something. I played this all the way back in January. So I'm also really fuzzy on how the game actually felt to play. When I opened up my Google Doc this morning to sit down and figure out what my nominees and runner-ups and whatever for Game of the Year are, when I realized I only played 2 games for this category, well, that made deciding which 2 games they should be really easy, but it made it really difficult to remember how I felt about The Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I do remember it had really recognizable voice actors in it, which is not a lot.
Yeah, wasn't Jennifer Hale in there?
Yeah, and so was what's his name now? I can't think of his name. The guy who played Ratchet and Ratchet and Clank. James Arnold Taylor. What's the name of the guy that plays the dad on Fairly Odd Parents?
Darren Norris.
Yeah, he was in it. He was Strider. It
Forgot
was
about that.
It was the acting's all really good.
Sorry, just imagining Timmy Turner's dad as Strider now. It's kind of entertaining to me.
That's pretty much what it was. He was doing more of his like gravelly voice. Like if you remember what the news broadcaster on that show sounded like, it was like that voice.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the game. But I played it and I had a good time for the like half a day it took to beat it.
That's good.
All right. That
All
means
right.
we spin the wheel again. What's it gonna be this time? And it's Nathan.
No, fuck. All right, my turn, you say.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm cheating a teeny tiny bit on this, okay?
You cheat
Uh,
every year.
I don't know. Well, fuck it. So I'm not sure why anybody else would know, but I was unemployed for 2 years, and I get super, super frugal when I'm unemployed. So I don't really buy or get new games much.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm gonna go with a game that I absolutely love, and it released some rather new content quite a bit. And granted, I only started playing it a little bit last year, so I think I'm in. So my runner-up for this year is Risk of Rain 2. That game is incredibly fun to just mess around and see what your luck is, see how a build's going, figure out how all the characters play and what kind of items you want to get to just keep on like get their power train really rolling. It's a real blast. I absolutely love that game to death whenever I just want to kill some time or I am just like, hey, uh, to like my boyfriend, like just, hey, I'm bored, want to just shoot shit on Risk of Rain 2. Like we'll do that a lot. It's a good one. I don't think either of you have ever played Risk of Rain 2, so it's kind of a bullet hell. Like
I've played the first Risk of Rain, but I know the second one's very different.
yeah. So the second one's like 3D. It's quite a bit different than the first one. You have a lot of different new characters. My favorite ones that I enjoy playing are the what is it? I want to say the Arcanist, but I can't remember if that's like their actual one. And it's one that basically has like magical tech powers and a jetpack. Um, Astrid, who's like this giant acid alien wolf thing, wolf slug, and one of the new ones, the Voidling, who is really fun, even just trying to manage his transformation ability from like his like he basically has when this bar fills up over a short period of time, you turn into like this like super all your attacks gain a lot of extra damage, you lose your healing ability, and it turns into a um it basically is an ability to suck away some of your health to prolong the damage form. Um, and his healing ability also or takes away some energy from transforming, and also healing instead of healing you also then prolongs the amount of time to get into your damage form. So managing, especially in earlier bits, your corruption bar, your power bar, so you're actually getting like your strong damage form when you need it most, is kind of just like this fun little like not hard to do, but it's just a nice little like other thing to do while you're also getting your absolute shit swarmed by thousands of enemies. Um yeah, no, I really like that character and happy he's in the game. He's a very fun character that got added in the whole Void uh update, which I can't remember when the Void update is, so nobody go look that up because I don't want to be cheating again. Um, and then they have another update coming out. I can't remember if it's already released or if it'll be soon. I haven't played the game in a month or two, but I'm excited to give it a shot. Yeah, it's a fucking fun game.
All right, cool. So I guess that means I'm up.
Yeah.
So my runner-up was actually one that I kind of expected to be the winner going into the year.
Okay.
I mean, that's not to say like it was disappointing or anything. Just other stuff came out.
Yeah.
But my runner-up is The Pathless, which I think just came out on Switch this year.
Is that the game that's kind of like Journey? You have like a bow and arrow?
It's kind of like it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd honestly, playing it, because it's from the same developers as Abzu.
Ah, yes. Okay.
So, I mean, part of the creative team behind Journey. But really, like, if I had to compare it to anything, it kind of feels like that studio's take on, something more like a Zelda game.
Okay.
I mean, especially kind of Breath of the Wild. So, at least early on, you have these, little. They're like temples, but basically they work like the shrines in Breath of the Wild. But yeah, I mean, I like the visuals, even with there are performance issues on Switch. Like the frame rate suffers at times. There's a lot of popping, but I mean, it's the art director from Journey and Abzu, so I mean, it's gonna look great.
Yeah, I remember you were wanting to play that one for a long time, but it kept. Was there a Switch version announced, or did it just keep getting delayed, or?
No, it was so initially it just came out for PS, I think PS4 and Apple Arcade. And then it got, sort of over time, it got more ports announced. So yeah, it came out in February for the Switch. So, I mean, basically, I'd just been waiting for the Switch version, like I did with Abzu. But yeah, I mean, the movement works really well. Is basically like you have sort of a limited sprint meter, but you refill that by shooting targets with your arrows. So it creates this nice kind of flow. And there's, there are boss fights, which is kind of unusual for this kind of game. At least in the context of like the people who worked on Journey and Abzu. But those are really good. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I expected. It's just a really good game.
That's good.
So with that, it's time to move on to the actual Game of the Year category. And I'll start with the runner-ups of those. Let's see who the wheel chooses for this. Right, so Nathan's up first.
Shit, and I was just thinking, oh god, what was my runner-up again? I
have everything written down.
Yeah, scrub.
Smarty pants.
Maybe you should look on that pizza box.
It's not like you've been doing this for years at this point.
Judgment. The judgment. Oh, I did have it. What was it? Oh,
Panty
right.
Party
So,
6.
oh, I don't even.
You fool! That was last year.
Yeah. Okay, so my runner-up for this year is it's still very in alpha, but it is just such a fun game to play. And it's called The Bloodline. How in the bleeding hell am I going to describe The Bloodline? The Bloodline is basically kind of it's an action game. You essentially are like this dude called the Harbinger. Ooh, sorry, someone just distracted me. He's called the Harbinger. Your entire goal of the game is essentially, or your entire thing of the game is that you're somebody who can like foresee certain events that will happen in the world, and you can choose to either intervene or not. and it's got a really fucking fun combat loop where the creator of it, I don't know how, but like this game's combat, even though it's so heavily in alpha, I guess that was the first thing they started with. And my God, did they manage to make the combat like both feel excellent and also be hilarious.
I'm looking at the Steam page right now. It kind of looks like if the art style of Ashen met a game like Skyrim. It doesn't seem like Skyrim, but just that kind of first person wandering around shooting things and
beating dudes up.
Yeah, and does it have a third person camera as well? Or is also screenshots that look like third person?
You can go into third person as well, yes.
What I'm confused by that I was about to ask you is it mentions that you level up by doing whatever you want. And as I'm scrolling through these little video files, there's riding a horse, there's shooting an arrow, there's stabbing a guy, there's chopping wheat, and then he's got a flamethrower. This was medieval. I don't know how he has a flamethrower.
It is medieval. You right. There's also goblins with jetpacks, which are the most annoying enemy in the goddamn world. It's such a fun game. Like, this game is just wild. Like, someone was just like, hey, I'm just going to have fun making this game, is essentially what this game is. And I really, because it always happens with fucking games and alphas, but I'm really hoping that he sticks through with it because it's such a fun game to play. Like, it is so fucking fun to play. He recently released an update where you can put a camp down anywhere. And like little ambushes will happen. And I think I have a character who's at least like level 29, 30-ish. And a lot of the enemy areas, like they're kind of like, okay, whatever. Those ambushes are like, I actually have to like back the fuck away and heal a little during them because it's like, oh shit, these guys will actually beat my ass in. Even though I'm like a golden god at this point. I've had so much fun with this game that I actually wrote it a review. I never fucking write reviews for games. Do you want to hear my review? Because I feel it encapsulates the combat of and like just how this game goes very well.
Sure.
All right. Story time. So, as only a true hero would, I came flying in on my box with magical wings, hitting the ground and kicking a goblin so hard against the wall its limbs exploded. Spin punching two of the now splattered goblin's friends into the air as I ascend like a beautiful phoenix of legends, only to throw an ice spear through the heart of their tribe's leader from on high and decapitate another little shit upon landing, before turning into a glorious thunderbird to fly off into the sunset. It's a fucking fun game. Like, there are so many moments where between spells, like I'm running I'm foregoing weapons mostly. I have a great sword once in a while, but by this point I've kind of left it in the background. During that I was using that great sword. But I've kind of gone full just like fists and magic. And just being like a fucking what do they call those? A fucking muscle mage? Just yeeting people against things with my foot before hurling a fireball at their at them is just so fun. You don't need to worry about splash damage when you can just kick someone far enough for it not to matter. It is a great game, and just the fucking playstyle. By the way, do you want to see my magical box? I took a screenshot of it.
I'd like to see that used as a pickup line.
Damn it, that would work.
This is my Cadillac. Here's Chibi. I literally just put magical wings on a box, and that's my Cadillac.
I've noticed a little unrelated, but I've noticed with you, I've got a pretty hard set rule about typically, well, I'll say more of a loose rule, honestly, but typically I avoid early access titles until they've released. But almost every time I find out about a game you like, it's always an early access title. Is that something you go looking for, or what's the deal there?
I do. So I love finding passion projects. And so that's what H3VR is. It's still in beta, but or it's still in its alpha. But like the creator of the game, he's so passionate about it. You can tell that it's just a game made of love. And like it's a really fun game. This game, I can't remember where I heard about it. I feel like it was someone just mucking about like through Steam ones and they just found this new game that released. And I was staring at him, just like, that gameplay loop looks really freaking fun. And so I decided to just like get it. It was pretty damn cheap. Or it's still like, I think it was like, yeah, I got it on sale for like $5 or something like that. 5 or $10. I think it's like $25 normally. But yeah, I was looking at it and I was just like, this game looks so fun. Like, I like the style of it. Just the open. I kind of I was in the mood for a game where I can just be like freeform, kind of make my own character, not have to deal with a class, like make your own class one. And yeah, this kind of popped up in my radar. And I was like, this looks like a fun game. It's done by one person, and it looks like he's been really trying to make it just play real fun. So I picked it up and tried it. And yeah, no, it's a really fantastic game. So where I am very critical on people who have alphas and betas out there, and I'm not someone who just like goes to like buy every single one that comes out. I do still actively look for ones that look like they can turn into a real fun game. And yeah, so this one was just one of the ones that kind of hit my got in my cross sights, and I tried it out and it is so great.
All right. So spin the wheel again. See who's up next.
Yeah.
Always close. But it's Tom next.
I was going to say, like, that's a long spin for a 50-50. Okie dokie. Well, my runner-up for games that came out this year, it's also a little bit of a cheat. Normally, I wouldn't want to allow remakes into the talk because I feel like we should discuss more similar to like Nathan's little diatribe he just went off of, like more passion projects from up and coming developers. And I play a lot of indie games these days, so like AAA stuff doesn't really appeal to me as much as it used to. There are exceptions, but there's always exceptions. But earlier this year, the Dead Space remake came out, and it's had performance problems on some systems. I think on PS5 it runs basically flawlessly, but there are some frame stutters very briefly. I've heard the PC version is very poorly optimized, but there's community workarounds to getting it to run a lot better. I think the Xbox version, I don't remember hearing anything negative about it, but I think it was fine. I happened to get it on PS5. Earlier in the year, I tweeted to EA about the game. They asked a question for the community, and I tweeted, and they ended up picking my tweet for a YouTube video they did with Edgar Wright, I believe is his name, the voice actor that plays Isaac Clarke. And because my quote and my tweet was in the video, they offered me a 10% discount on PS5 if I wanted it. So I took it and bought it on PS5. I don't really know what to say about it that isn't going to take me on a huge diatribe of why I like Dead Space, because it is basically just the original game again, but everything's a lot more fine-tuned. Going in and adding voice acting for Isaac makes it feel a lot more connected to Dead Space 2 and 3, and they even added little side missions and hints that lead more into Dead Space 2 and 3's plot, which makes it feel like a lot more of a connected narrative. If somebody were going to play the games today, I would actually recommend you play the remake, even though there aren't remakes of 2 and 3. Just play the remake as Dead Space 1 and then go back to the originals of 2 and 3. At least from a narrative perspective, it would actually link up a lot better than playing the original. Even in 2, they recast the voice actress for Nicole for flashback sequences and things like that. But the voice actor that they ended up using in 2 and 3 for Nicole is who they recast for the remake of 1. So even the voice actors stay more consistent if you play the remake and then go to the originals. I am hoping they do a Dead Space 2 remake at some point, but it sounds like the studio who worked on it for EA, Motive, it sounds like they're working on another big project. I think it's actually an Iron Man licensed game. So I have no idea how that's going to turn out or what that's going to look like, but I have a feeling if Dead Space 2 remake is even on the table that it won't be for quite a long time. So don't hold out for it if you're interested in playing the remake of Dead Space. It's very good. This year on the channel for Wildrose Scarecade, Rob played this, and we hemmed and hawed for a little while about which one he should play, the remake or the original. And the reason why I went for the original is because I wanted to, as he progresses through the series on the channel, that leaves the door open for after he's beaten 3 to come back to the remake, and now he can appreciate it. The improvements that it's made, that it's taken some things from 2 and 3 that worked really well and reworked them into Dead Space 1. And I feel like if you go from the remake to the originals, you'll miss that a little bit. But from a purely casual perspective of if you've never played Dead Space and you're just curious about it, I highly recommend the remake. I can't speak for the performance on PC at this time. I will probably pick it up on PC at some point. I'm trying to go all in on PC gaming because I'm getting tired of some of the shit going on in the console space. I'm hoping to be able to build a PC this year, but we'll see how that works out. So I can't speak for the performance on PC, but I have seen on the Dead Space subreddit that there seems to be some workarounds, and I don't like giving developers too much benefit of the doubt for performance when they should just patch their game and optimize their game. I don't like the idea of, install this mod and then it fixes it, and then you review the game on Steam based on how you played it with this mod. I don't like that. I feel even if a really good game has really shitty performance, you should review it for the shitty performance that it has and not what the community has fixed themselves.
Yeah.
I totally agree. As much as I love modding games, I definitely agree on that.
So I have a hard time recommending it for any platform other than specifically PS5 because that's where I played it. The performance issues that it did have were incredibly minor, and I didn't even notice them until my second playthrough. The game is basically constantly loading in new areas. So if you are walking around at a moderate pace and checking your corners, you'll never notice this. But if you go too fast, you'll actually have a brief fraction of a second where the game will basically freeze, and then it'll stutter like as if it's running at like 2 frames per second, and then it'll go back to normal. And it happens so quick that there's the part of me that doesn't want to nitpick it, but I feel like it's worth bringing up that for some people that's very immersion breaking and very very distracting. what it's doing when it does that is that it's loading in more of the area that you're trying to progress into, and you just happen to move quicker than the game pulled the data it needed off of the solid state. On PS5, it's not really an issue if you're walking slowly and checking your corners, but on a second playthrough where you kind of know where the enemies are going to come from, you're really familiar with the layout of the ship, and the spooks are not as spooky because you've been through the game once before, so you potentially are sprinting everywhere to try to, maybe you're trying to Metroid it a little bit and you're trying to get a faster completion time or something. That's when you notice the problems, because you're running through an area instead of walking through it. My understanding is that same stutter is a major problem in the PC version, where it's basically every time you open a door or every time you use an elevator or something like that. And it really feels bizarre that on PS5 it's such a minor nitpicky problem, but I've heard on PC it's a major problem that never got patched, because that's the kind of company EA is. They released it, they did like one patch, and then they walked away from it.
Yeah.
So,
EA.
Benefit of the doubt for like EA Motive made a fantastic game, the developers, but EA proper, the publisher, I have a feeling that to them it was maybe even a case where it didn't make as much money as they wanted, so they took the developers and pulled them off of it as quickly as they could. That being said, EA, of all companies, tweeted, I believe, that they asked the community if they wanted a Dead Space 2 remake, and there was an overwhelming yes, we do want that, and that nothing's come of it. There's been no announcements, but I wonder if that means that the Dead Space remake did perform well enough that EA is willing to fund another one, but who knows? EA is very frugal with their investments, and I think they've taken a lot of steps in the right direction, where they've done a lot more single player games that are really good, really high quality. I don't trust them completely yet, but they've taken steps in the right direction for quality of their releases, and hopefully that things like patching their games to run better post-release becomes something more of a priority as they go. But I feel like they're another one of those publishers that's still chasing the live service game high of, we want to spend 200 million on a game and have it make 500 million per year instead of it making a one-shot profit, and then there isn't any recurring revenue coming from it. So I feel like their single player stuff, they're kind of, once it's released and once it's sold its major numbers on launch day, they kind of just wash their hands and go, okay, time for the next thing. We don't care about that anymore.
Yeah.
But the Dead Space remake is a fantastic remake that I feel is better than the original, only because it's basically the exact same game, but better. So it's the original Dead Space I would consider to be like a solid 8 or 9 out of 10, but the Dead Space remake bumps it down a notch just because the Dead Space remake is just a lot better. There's things like Rob will remember, you end up finding basically you have to buy your weapons from the store. As you progress through the main game, the weapons become available for purchase. But it actually, in my opinion, discourages experimentation, because there's a finite amount of resources and money. So why would you risk buying a totally new gun when instead you could use that money to buy ammo for a gun that you're already good with? In the remake, all of the guns are just in the environment, sometimes behind locked rooms, like a Metroid game, for example, where you have to explore, but your reward for exploring is you find a new gun, and that encourages you experimenting with it and seeing what kind of cool things you can do with it. And I didn't realize how much of an improvement that was until I watched Rob play the original. And what we ended up having to do was, Rob will remember, I made you play the remake very briefly to try out a bunch of guns just so that you knew what you might want in the original. And that is such a, I feel like that is such an issue the original has looking back on it that nobody really clued into back when it released, because it was, you know, it's the first game in its series, so it's going to have some growing pains like that. But that one feature alone makes me feel like I will, beyond nostalgia reasons, I will probably never go back to the original. And my recommendation for fans or potential fans moving forward is just give that remake a shot. Unless you're really not sure if you'll like it, because sometimes the original game goes on Steam sale for like $1, so that's also an option. But yeah, my runner-up for Game of the Year this year is the Dead Space remake. I think I've probably played it 6 or 7 times this year since it's come out. It's become my, I don't know, for this year anyway, it became my, I don't know what I want to play, so I'll play Dead Space game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really like Dead Space. So that's my runner-up.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do remember, like, even with like trying out the weapons in the remake, at the end we had to sell a bunch of stuff to get ammo for the ones we actually used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that leaves me. So my runner-up is actually another horror game. A little different than most horror games. Like, it's more about sort of creating a consistent atmosphere than having, you know, a lot of actual scares. But my runner-up is Dredge.
I still really want to play Dredge.
It is really good. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically like a narrative horror fishing game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't really have like the complex fishing of, you know, a lot of fishing games I've seen, but I think that actually helps it. You know, kind of keeps things moving faster and keeps the focus on the story as it kind of unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's like, it really is kind of an exercise in creating an atmosphere, and it does that really well. You know, there's this sort of like constant gloom to the world. You know, it's usually overcast. You know, it's this kind of somber, mysterious music going on. And you know, that's occasionally things happen that sort of mess with you. Like, you know, you'll just see eyes in the dark, or, you know, rocks will pop up where you didn't remember them being. And yeah, I mean, even, and then like when it does decide, you know, to go with the scares, usually, you know, it's some kind of sea monster that's attacking you. It is really effective because they are legitimate threats, and they are really hard to escape if you're not ready.
Oh boy.
You know, eventually you get you get one upgrade to your boat that lets you, you know, have a speed burst in exchange for risking overheating it. And so using that is legitimately really tense. You know, trying to get away without completely wrecking your boat yourself.
Huh. I like the look of it.
I watched.
Yeah,
I can't
I do
remember
really
who,
like the style.
I can't remember who I watched, but I watched a Let's Play of it when it first came out, and it definitely felt like a game I wanted to pick up to play on the channel for Rob to play it on the channel.
Mm.
And then I was waiting for it to go on sale, and then I found out you'd already played it. But it definitely looks interesting. It also seems like, even amongst its horror elements, like its more creepy atmosphere, it also seems like something I could see myself playing just to chill out.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you're not in danger of being eaten by something, it is a very chilled out game.
Yeah.
You know, you go,
like
you
life.
fish, you sell the fish. Sometimes you get like a really creepy one that you can sell for more, upgrade your boat. It's great. Seems like a really good time, actually.
Yeah. I think I knew someone who had the exact same descriptor of camping. It's really fun as long as you're not being eaten by something. It's
I
like,
mean, that
okay.
you can really that can apply to any part of life.
I know, right?
You know, I've seen coyotes on the way to work. One of them could have eaten me.
True.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool atmospheric game. I like the visual style. You know, this sort of, I don't even know how to describe the character art, but it's just so different from anything else I've played. So yeah, that's my runner-up for Game of the Year.
Awesome.
That means it's time to get into the really good stuff. We're into the winners now.
Excellent.
Who's going to talk about their belated Game of the Year first? I'll buy a centimeter again. Tom's up first.
Okay, so this one, earlier in this podcast, I said I wasn't going to talk much about a particular game, and this is why. The only other older title I've played this year that I hadn't already played in some form, Rob and I played on the channel together. It is Metroid 2 Return of Samus. Yeah, if you've seen that series, you pretty much know my opinions of it. I'm a huge Metroid fan, but I'd never played the Metroid 2, mostly just because I'm quite the late bloomer into Metroid. So most of my experiences with those games came through the Wii and Wii U's virtual console services, which Metroid 2 never released for, because for some reason they never really did Game Boy games much until Switch Online, and that bothers me. But it has the same shortcomings in some aspects that the original game had, where it has no in-game map, so it can be quite difficult to figure out where you're supposed to be going and what you're supposed to be doing. Well, not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be hunting down and killing all the Metroids. But I think that formula works well for the Game Boy. The areas aren't overly complex. It's just from the future looking back to the past, where every Metroidvania game has a map. It makes it very difficult to create a reliable mental map of where you are and where you're going, what direction
and even
you're
harder
heading.
to create a physical paper map, as we found out.
Yeah, for the first couple of episodes of that series, Rob and I tried to draw a map and tried to do it as authentic as we possibly could. And I don't remember what episode it was, but it was fairly early on. We gave up and looked up a map. And that did, in my opinion, enhance the game a little bit, just because it felt like I wasn't completely lost. That is, I think, a small part of what Metroid tries to do, is make you feel isolated and lost. But there is give and take with that. And I think the series moving forward from Super Metroid onward, there was always a map system. I think that showed that you can have that feeling of isolation, but still have a sense of direction. So playing Metroid 2, but looking up a map really helped. It really helped modernize it enough where I had a good time playing it. The controls, I was very surprised at how well they hold up. That game's very fast and smooth, and Samus kind of moves and behaves like she does in other Metroid games, whereas in Metroid 1, it feels like an NES game where it's still pretty fluid, but it has that sort of stiffness where you recognize that you are technically a bunch of squares moving in an environment with a bunch of other squares. Metroid 2 felt surprisingly modern. It felt almost like what an indie game that's trying to replicate Metroid today might feel like. So it was really interesting for me to see some of Super Metroid's DNA actually doesn't originate from Super Metroid. It actually comes from Metroid 2, despite it being on the original Game Boy. It kind of transcends a lot of the limitations of the hardware. And that was just very shocking to see. Praising the graphics as well for the Game Boy. We had in a whole episode titled Incredible Sprite Work, because there was a couple moments in that game where it really didn't feel like a Game Boy game. And to be fair, that being said, there are quite a few original Game Boy games that have really detailed sprites, like Pokemon is one of them. But there's also a lot of games that just phone it in and focus on, this is a handheld title that someone's going to play for 20 minutes, so it doesn't need that much effort. Metroid 2 felt like it was a passion project the whole way through. In particular, like the way Samus just looks, like it almost looked like her armor had shading on it. And that's really impressive for the Game Boy. So that game just impressed me across the board. It was actually a game I hadn't forgotten about, and I was intending to bring up for this podcast. Even when Rob and I were playing it, I'd already decided that this deserves at least an honorable mention on our Game of the Year podcast. And then when I looked at my list this morning, I realized it was one of two options anyway. But Metroid 2, unlike the Lord of the Rings, the game, it earned its place completely on this list. I can totally see myself, in my case, probably downloading a ROM, but I can see myself playing that game again. And in fact, the itch to play that one particular game again is part of the reason why I started playing the remake again. So yeah, Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the original Game Boy. I think that game came out in 1991. That is my belated Game of the Year.
All right. Spin that wheel again.
But that last room where you have to jump all the way up can go fuck itself.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like, the space jump when you can get it going. I just like getting in that rhythm. That room could have been like half the height, though. And you know what? Half the width.
Yeah.
So that was the worst part, was getting all the way up there and realizing, oh, I'm like halfway between two passages. Anyway, now that we've complained about the game. Alright, so now it's me. So we were talking earlier about, the whole crossover between the 3DS and the Switch and the Game Boy Advance and the DS. I never had a DS growing up because I bought a Game Boy Advance like towards the end of its run. But I remember like reading Nintendo Power and being like kind of envious of all the really weird creative stuff that was coming out on the DS. And so earlier this year, when they were shutting down the eShop for the 3DS, I, took a look through the games and I found one that I remembered from back then. I decided to pick it up. So my belated game of the year is Electroplankton.
What the fuck is that?
I mean, it was big enough it got a stage in Smash. But it's almost cheating to call it a game. It's
Oh, I just Googled it. I know the stage you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's like I guess it's kind of like a musical game. There's basically a bunch of, I don't know if you'd call them like stages or tools. Each one works differently. Some, work with, like your voice through the microphone. Some you just kind of tap things or move things around to make sounds. And yeah, I remember thinking when it came out that was a really cool idea. And playing it, it is really, again, kind of chilled out. And yeah, just kind of creating sound, like it almost feels like playing an instrument, but kind of more relaxed and less rigid than that. Like you don't really need to have any kind of technique. Yeah, you basically just kind of mess around in the game, does a lot of stuff for you. But yeah, I mean, even this morning, like over the last 2 days, I've kind of been going over my possible contenders, and yeah, I just really got sucked into that one. I mean, there isn't even really that much to say about it. I did have to like download each individual segment instead of the game as a whole, just because that's how it was on the eShop for some reason.
Odd.
Yeah.
Some
But
games
yeah,
used to do that for some reason, and I don't know why. I remember Fable 2 did that. When you bought it digitally, you'd get to a point in the game where it would suddenly tell you, you gotta download again.
huh. And like,
Yeah.
there's always some stuff like that where it's like, oh yeah, it's one game, but it's 4 chapters. But yeah, I've really been enjoying that. Right. So that means it's time for Nathan's belated game of the year.
My belated game of the year. Oh boy. Well, this one was quite a fun and interesting game to play. Disco Elysium. Oh boy, Disco Elysium is one hell of a game, let me tell you. I really so first of all, the art style is fucking beautiful. This is a beautiful game. Like, holy shit. And one thing I really love is how every basically aspect of you, like your body, your mind, like your perception, all that, are basically all their own characters. And the game can really throw you off, and it has a lot of interesting narrative beats using that. One thing I loved was I'm used to games where, like, if something like, oh, your perception pops off and tells you something, like, it's usually like, oh, yeah, you passed a check, so you notice this thing. But in this game, your body parts can fail checks and give you incorrect information and leave it up to you to realize that what basically you're not getting the right information out of this. Like, if something doesn't make sense, it leaves it fully up to you to be like, yeah, that doesn't sound right. And it's really kind of crazy to do that, because where it has roles for major checks, the minor checks your body parts and aspects and you do in the background don't show where the major ones do. So it's like something will pop up and you actually have to sit there and think, wait, are you bullshitting me, or am I actually like, is this legit?
I
Also,
don't
I love
trust
how
my
the game.
arm.
No, there are literally parts of you that you can't trust. I never trust my body. My body's fucking electro system, whatever. I never put my faith in that. That can go to hell. But and another thing that the game I think is really interesting in how it does is it nitpicks you as a player. So it has all these different achievements, like, and it might be kind of spoiling a little bit if you guys were to play it. So I don't know if you guys want me to actually go on with this bit or not. Up to you guys if you want me to talk about this, because I just realized it might be a fun thing for you to discover on your own.
I mean, we're talking about the games anyway, might as well.
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep it a little vaguer than I was about to go into it. But one thing I really find it interesting in this game is that it'll nitpick you politically and kind of see where you fit in. And it really, like, because I'm playing this game very how I would act in real life, it's kind of interesting to see how the game goes. Oh yeah, you're this. And I'm like, what? And I look at my choices and I go, okay, I guess that makes sense, but
You're
what?
a Republican.
Oh God. No, I failed that one super early on because I had super hardcore defended a gay dude, so I'm already not a Republican. But yeah, no, and I also defended a dude who of a different race. Anyway, but no, it's a fascinating game. I love how they made not only the story itself is interesting and the people you made, but how you yourself are made up of so many different characters. You're put into a world where the literal story behind is you're a detective, but you basically went on this binge and you've completely forgotten everything about the world you're in. Like you have like some serious amnesia going on. Like and like people and like the world itself is close enough to our world that aspects of it make sense, but also there's a lot of history and a lot of like the people and culture and stuff that's so wildly different. Even some technology that's so wildly different that it does a good job of putting you in a space where you feel like you know enough information to get by, but you sure as hell don't know anything about this world. You know enough for it to make sense, and that's about it. Like, it is such a good game. I fucking love this game. And they also recently released their final cut. Like, they had one more update that they released recently, and I think I'm going to restart a whole new game because I take forever in these games because there's so much shit to do, and my ADHD is like, hey, we got to go do this now. I'm like, okie dokie. There's a big murder, but this lady says her attic is haunted. Well, guess I'm going to figure out what's up in her attic. But yeah, so no, it's a fucking fantastic game. And also another thing that I kind of have to curb with my ADHD is that there's a lot of stuff in this game. A lot of it has a time system. So I like exploring a lot of side stuff, but I also have to take in consideration how much time I'm putting into exploring all the side stuff and like the actions I'm doing. Because sometimes, like, you can run out of time on some things. There's some stuff that if you're not attentive enough, like, it's not like you have to go and do this right away, but it kind of puts like a little, yeah, in like 3 days this might happen, in 2 days this might happen. Like, so you should probably keep track of these, like, and also there's a lot of stuff you can do in a day, and then the next day will change things. So there's some stuff that you do in one day, and if you hit a roadblock, it might literally be that you just have to go to bed and see what the new day brings. And you just have to be careful because where going to bed will make time go forward and bring new things. It can also lock out old things. It's like, okay. So it is such an integrate. It's such like it. There's so much to this game. Like there's so goddamn much to this game, and it is so fun. And there are so many things in this game that are just wild. Like at some point, I do want to play this game on the channel, like with one of you, because oh, I think this game would just be so fun. Even like the characters, even your own body parts characters and like everything going on. It's such a good time. And you can play it. You can be a very you can basically be someone who's like fucking insane in this game if you want, or you can be like super straight and serious, or just beat the crap out of everybody you see, or be super like intricate and like pacifistic and all that. Like there's so many ways you can play this game. It is such a great game. But yeah, that's my game of the year, Disco Elysium. Fucking fantastic game. Goddamn love this game.
Yeah, I remember hearing that Citizen Sleeper took a lot of influence from that game, especially with like the clocks for, doing certain tasks, making certain things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a few games that have done it. There's a lot of yeah. There's one thing I really hope that another game, although they'll have a hell of a time to fucking outdo what Disco Elysium did, but the whole your body parts being characters is so interesting. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
You have like the external like monologue world of what's going on. You have all these side quests, but you also have like your own like inner like a war going on within you. It's so fascinating. But yeah, no, it's great. I fucking love it.
Right. That means it's time for the real winners now. The real winners, because I think I said that last segment.
Yeah.
But these are the actual games of the year. These are games that came out in 2023. And we've got the winners. Who's up first? Oh my god, it was right on the line. Tom's up first.
Okie dokie. Well, this should surprise nobody. It's Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
I did not expect to like that game anywhere near as much as I did. Nathan bought it for me when it was in early access. I think it was like 2019 or something.
Oh yeah.
And
even early. I think it was 2018.
I played it for like half an hour and was like, nope, this is not my thing. I don't like this. I'm not having fun with it. And then when it came out this year, an official release, and it was already in my Steam library, I thought, well, money's kind of tight. It's a new game everybody's talking about, and I technically have it. So sure, I'll give it a try. And holy crap, that game is incredible. The amount of freedom you have to just do whatever you want, and there are legitimate consequences to negative actions that you wouldn't expect. Just ripping someone off in the beginning of the game, you might run into them again later in the game and they remember you, and really makes you think twice about just ripping people off. I remember, so Nathan and I played a few episodes of it early on the channel, and that was legitimately my first experience with it. So it's really rough because I keep asking questions like, what is this? How does this work? And it's really painful for me to watch it now because it's like watching someone play Mario and asking, what is the jump button for?
Yeah.
But I don't even know how many hours I have in that game now, but I've put quite a few hours into it, and it is incredible. I still haven't beaten it because every time I get to Act 3, which is the final act of the game, I get a little bit into the act. I get some character story arcs all tied up, and then I'm starting to consider working my way to the finale of the main story. And then Larian will release like an update that changes something early game, so I start over because I want to see it. Yeah. I've started over, I don't even know how many times. I've done some evil runs up to Act 3. I've done some goody two-shoes runs up to Act 3, and then I've done more of kind of skirting the line between them, which is how I typically play RPGs. I started a whole new playthrough just so I could recruit a character that was only be for like the evil run. And then because of how much the community liked the character and were upset that you could only get them by being like a total asshole, Larian patched the game and brought the voice actors in and recorded all new lines just so you could get that character if you're also a good person. And I was like knee deep in an evil run just to get that character, so it made me real mad. And I stopped playing for a little while because now I'm like, oh, so I don't have to kill those two other characters I really like just so I can get this one? And you released the patch for that after I got past that point? Fuck you! And I stopped playing. but I'm already thinking about playing again because I just can't seem to walk away from that game for too long. It's one of the reasons why I've only played 6 games this year. Once I started playing it, I didn't go back to anything else.
I see you playing it all the time on Steam.
It is my most played game on Steam now.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I'm just like, I'll just be sitting there and then I just see you pop up and it's like, oh, there he's playing Baldur's Gate 3 again.
Holly,
Are you trying out the new patch that just released?
Holly started playing it after watching me play it, and she likes it even more than I do. I'm positive it would have been her game of the year if she was able to join us today. We're recording this pretty last minute because we couldn't get everybody together, so we don't have Holly with us like normal. But she's put way more hours into it than I have, and because we share our Steam libraries, she was technically playing my copy of the game. So for Christmas, I bought her own copy so we can actually play together now.
Aww.
So it might actually become a thing where I'm going back in again just because now I can play with my wife. I've been waiting for so long for a game that does this, where it's got an incredibly compelling single player experience that is so deep and immersive, but you can also bring your friends and they can interact with your world in such a seamless way. I've wanted this for so long, and now it finally exists, and I really feel like I'm counting down the days until, like, the black sheep in this case is you, Rob, where you don't have a PC powerful enough to run the game, but I'm counting down the days until you do, because I can totally see all of us having, like, it's Friday night, it's Baldur's Gate night, and just we have a party and we're going, and the shenanigans we could all do together. I just can't. Oh, I'm so excited for that to happen someday.
Yeah.
We're going to have to make a series of all of us on this because it's such a fun. Also, I would always say wait until Lauren has their definitive edition release because they always add even more shit to the game when they do that.
This game
Like,
feels like maybe it factually isn't this long or this big, like, but how it feels. To give you a sense of scope, Rob, this Baldur's Gate 3 is like the entire Mass Effect trilogy as one game. So there's so many things that you like. The game is separated into 3 acts, and each act feels like it could be its own game. And so there's things that happen in Act 2 and 3 that are payoffs or negatives to things you've done in Act 1 that you wouldn't see coming. And I can't think of really good examples that aren't getting into spoiler territory, but there's ramifications for actions that you wouldn't even expect. Like, even for good actions, like killing a terrorist in Act 1 to save a child, and then you get to Act 2 and it turns out that terrorist has a really angry husband or wife or something that has a whole army, and it made a boss fight way harder than it should have been just because you were trying to be a good guy in Act 1. And there's all kinds of things where most dialogues or combat, I mean, you can talk your way out of them. There was a boss fight that Holly had a horrendous time with, that she absolutely hated, that I had an easy time with because I was able to convince the boss to kill himself. So, like, the amount of freedom that you have with this level of presentation, Baldur's Gate 3 has made it so that I personally, I was already kind of lukewarm to it, but I don't give a shit about Dragon Age 4 at all. I don't think BioWare is going to manage to make a game that even deserves to be in the same conversation with Baldur's Gate 3. I really feel like Baldur's Gate 3 is a game of the decade. Like, it is incredible. All of the praise it's gotten is worth it. It's like any game that has this level of popularity, it's got its haters, and that's to be expected, but man, there are so few negatives to this game. every so often they'll do a patch and it'll break something and it'll make something really buggy and glitchy, but then it's not very long until they've patched that out. And I can forgive that for a game of this scope, because how can you possibly predict every aspect of you fix an armor not equipping properly, and all of a sudden there's a obscure character in an obscure corner of the game that doesn't spawn or something, and it makes it so a quest chain can't be completed. I can see how on a game this big that can be a really tough challenge for your patches. And so every time the community points out something that this shouldn't be this way, or this patch broke this, Larian's always gotten right on it and gotten it fixed. They've also added in entire mechanics into the game just because the community asked for them. And it's not a lot of it's not common that you see a development studio give this much of a shit. I still am a little bitter to them for the way they handled the Xbox situation, not because I'm an Xbox fanboy mad about the game not coming to Xbox quick enough or anything like that. I obviously played it on PC. But I don't like it when good developers are forced to have marketing speak, where they have to say things like, "Oh, it's not coming to Xbox because Xbox isn't powerful enough because the Series S is pretty weak." And it's like, the Series S is more powerful than the Steam Deck, and the game runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck. So clearly it's an optimization issue. So I don't like it when developers do that, and you can think for yourself and realize, no, there's more going on here. I think there's some checks being written in the background, and that's why it's on PS5 but not Xbox yet. It is on Xbox now, but at the time when they were kind of saying some shit, I just don't like it. I don't like when the console wars are brought to the attention of developers because of backroom deals or something. I don't agree with it. I'm not a Call of Duty fan, but even on for something like Call of Duty, when it's like, this content is exclusive to this platform because this platform's the best place for it. No, it's because that platform will have paid you. You shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But Baldur's Gate 3 is an incredible experience that really feels like it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Even if Larian makes a Baldur's Gate 4, I don't think they will top Baldur's Gate 3. Holy shit, it's such an incredible game, and I highly recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Actually, before I spin the wheel, Nathan, is your game of the year Baldur's Gate 3? Just so we're not like breaking things up too much.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead then.
All right. So yeah, actually, Tom, while you're speaking and talking about all that, I've been putting off another one because there are a few mods. I'm just like, oh, I like these mods, but now I'm downloading the new mods. I'm probably gonna be playing Baldur's Gate 3 later. Yeah, no, just fucking fantastic. And like as Tom said, I grabbed the like super beta version back when it first released, because Lawrence Studios usually does an open beta because they have a long QA period, and they like to make sure that the games that they're making, people like the feel of and how they play and all that. And yeah, no, this is a fucking fantastic game. I love Lawrence Studios. Like I said, I also want to drag you guys into Divinity Original Sin 2 at some point, because that's another fucking fantastic game. Like, it's so good. And a lot of the stuff, like Tom mentioned, like it's in Divinity Original Sin 2. You can tell that a lot of the stuff in Baldur's Gate is stuff that has been improved on over their time doing Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, this is probably the smoothest game they've done yet. That's I should clarify though, that is a turn-based strategy game because they've done a lot of other games before. And yeah, no, it's fucking fantastic. I goddamn love this game. It's a great game. I have a lot of fun with it. I'm not even a fan of uh D&D 5th edition. I think 5th edition's a little kind of cruddy compared to like Pathfinder 2nd edition. I find that has a lot more freedom and there's a lot more you can do with the Pathfinder 2nd edition. But even though it's using 5th edition, it's still such a fucking fantastic game that that's just like, yeah, well, sure, 5th edition icky, but this game is fucking amazing. And it's not a true 5th edition. There's a lot of stuff they changed up for making it play well in the video game. So but that's me going on to tabletop games, and that's not what we're talking about. That's a whole other can of worms that I don't need to open up right now. But yeah, no, the characters, the fucking graphics, the fact I can just be a nude wizard lizard. It's just such a beautiful and well-crafted game. I was kind of spoiled on how much Lauren Studios puts into their choice and consequence, because that's always something that they've done. So I was a little, but still, even in this game, it's fucking fantastic. But it's always been there. There's one that actually makes me laugh in Divinity Original Sin 2, and there's no way in hell we're going to do it. But there's one part that basically, if you've never sinned before in the game, then you can basically get past this one part super easy. The issue is that it talks about stealing. What is it? It's where are the ones? It's stealing. I can't remember the second one, and killing. And so if you want to beat that, you can just have a character just sit in the background of every fight and never kill someone and do that, and then they can get past it really fast. But we're never doing that. That's a hell of a fucking time if I drag you guys into that. No, it's such a fun game. I love it. And yeah, no, Lauren Studios. I fucking love Lauren Studios. I hope that they forever don't give in to their corporate whole or the whole corporate thing, because currently they're very much how I remember old studios being, like old BioWare and all that.
I was gonna say they feel like BioWare before EA bought BioWare.
Yeah, like they're just very passionate. They're just there to make good games. Like Sven doesn't really like, sure, money's nice, but it's not like they don't really like, sure, money's nice, but it's not like their main focus. I always find it funny because like how Sven was, or they were talking about in an interview, how they basically had to save up for like through their earnings through Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2 to be able to purchase the rights to make this game, because they just really wanted to make a Baldur's Gate game. Like, it wasn't offered to them. They had to go and like not only like pitch the idea for the game to I think it's Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
But then they also had to buy the ability to make the game from Wizards of the Coast. And even through all of that, Sven, like they were expecting like maybe they'll get 100,000 players, maybe on release. Like they're not a company that really goes like, sure, they need money and they want to get like paid, but they're not looking to like maximize profits. They're like, yeah, sure, if we get another like 100,000 sales, we'll like get a bit more, and then they want to go in, and I think they're going to try a new smaller game next, which I'm excited for after they're done with all the upkeep and the eventual definitive version of this game, which is always a free release for everybody who's bought the game. Which I think, honestly, they deserve extra money, but that's just me. Because their games are fucking fantastic, but they're also a really cool company, and they're very chill. But yeah, like, I'm just so happy it blew up so much for Lawrence Studios and for, like, all of them, because I know a lot of that money is just going to go right back into whatever they're going to make next. Because that's kind of how Lawrence Studios runs. They're just kind of there to make new stuff and new games and just keep on going at it. So I'm excited to see what they do even further on, because God, I fucking love Lawrence Studios, and it's such a good game, and they make such great games. And I'm going to enjoy them while it lasts, because there is always that cynical part of me that's like, hey, Sven isn't exactly young. And he's the one who owns and runs Lawrence Studios. So you never know what you're going to get when he goes. So, I'm enjoying the game while it's still very much like BioWare was before EA bought it and all that, where it's just a great studio. They're pumping out some real quality games. Like, you can tell it's made with love, and it's just freaking fantastic. But, the pessimism aside, it's a fucking great game. Go play the game if you haven't already. It's fucking fantastic, and I can't wait for all of us to be able to play it together. And I also want to drag you guys into Divinity Original Sin 2, because it's a fucking good game too. That's another one I want to do on a series, because oh my god, I freaking love that game. The playtime hours of 1,300 and some odd might say that I like that game a little. It's a good game. Anyways, yeah, so that's my diatribe. It's fantastic.
All right.
I'm gonna look at mods and get it going so I can play it later. I might still play XCOM 2 later, but I'm definitely gonna play this.
So that just leaves my game of the year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I had like somebody to introduce us. Yeah, I mean, I saw the developer of Citizen Sleeper tweeting about this game earlier this year. I thought it sounded kind of interesting. So my game of the year is Chants of Sennar.
I have not heard of that one either.
I've not heard of that one either.
It was nominated at the Game Awards for, what was it, Games with Impact? Impact Games? Well, I don't know what the award is. But...
Oh.
I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, I googled it. It looks familiar.
But yeah, basically it's like kind of it's like a puzzle adventure game that centers around the idea of basically translating languages. So there are 5 different areas in the game. Nothing in the actual environment of the game is written in English. It's all just kind of the runes of these languages. And you have to figure out what each one of them means to solve all the different puzzles.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And it really hooked me just with how good the puzzles are. Especially the sort of overarching puzzle of translating all these different languages.
But can you turn into a bear?
Can you have sex as a bear?
I mean, there aren't even any bears in the game.
Oh,
no!
I like the art style. It looks really cool.
Yeah, no, really pretty. I like it.
Yeah, actually, maybe just because like it is kind of a desert setting. I have heard a lot of comparisons to Journey. It's a little kind of abstracted. You're guy in a red hooded robe.
As you do.
Yeah.
Something about
but
deserts
yeah, I
and
mean-
red robes. So even when
Yeah,
characters talk to you, you don't know what they're saying until you've deciphered it?
Yeah, their speech bubbles are just like the runes that come up.
Huh.
Huh, that is interesting.
Yeah, it actually, like, it's, I don't want to say easier because there is still a challenge to it. It's there are like quality of life features, I guess. Like your character has a little notebook where you yourself can actually make notes. Like, okay, well, I think this one means help or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then periodically you'll get a page of a bunch of different pictures that you can kind of apply to the symbols too, and that'll tell you if you've got it right. So once you've actually got it translated, you'll see the translation pop up like above the speech bubbles or signs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like a lot of it is kind of guesswork, and there are moments where you'll think, oh yeah, I know what this is. I've been getting along thinking it's this the whole time, and then you'll find out it was something different. That's really interesting.
This person's saying they like the color of my shoes, and they're like, please help me, my child is stuck behind a boulder. And you just say, well, thank you, ma'am, and walk away.
Yeah. Yeah, really, like the only real criticism I've heard of the game is a lot of people didn't like the stealth sections that you have to go through sometimes. I actually did enjoy those, like, a lot more than stealth sections in most games. Yeah, it might even just be kind of the viewpoint, because you do have that kind of like Resident Evil camera where it's just one fixed view. You're up higher. My issue with a lot of stealth games is, you have that like close third person camera, which I feel like that makes it harder usually.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, it looks like a really cool game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have much to say about it. Basically just beyond, the puzzles are good, and if I go into how good they are, I'm going to spoil all of them. I will say there was one, because there's only one of the different sort of races in the game where you have to figure out their numbering system. And the one puzzle in their area took me a while because I completely misunderstood how this one machine that you have to operate works. But yeah, like just the fact that there's a puzzle that kind of complex, I really appreciate. Yeah. So that's my game of the year.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, no. This looks good. I like
Mm-hmm.
I just love I just love the little guy under like I guess it's like the main banner of the game, like Chance's Tender. I just like the guy with like the rounded top hat, just going like his hands out, just like eh.
Oh yeah, with like kind of the spikes on his headdress.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
no.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's the priest you encounter in the that you hear about in the first area.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's just shrugging at the sky like I can't fucking read.
That's exactly what you want to hear from your priest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. God said so.
No.
I know what's going on.
All right. So yeah, those are our games of the year for 2023.
They're good games.
Yeah. And if any of those sounded interesting to you, you can watch Tom and I play Metroid 2, or you can watch Tom and Nathan play Baldur's Gate.
Please don't watch that one. I'm bad in that one. It was painful.
It's so funny.
It was fun to play, and I don't regret doing it for sure. But after playing the game for hours and hours and hours after we played it, when I went back and looked at some of those, I'm like, Nathan, what are these orange things? And I'm just sitting there, that's your bonus actions, you idiot! You absolute troglodyte! Is it time to bear? I don't know, is it? There's so many more things you could do than turn into a bear.
I know.
But who would want to do anything else?
Yes, every time I've tried playing, I've tried doing a different class, but I always come back to Druid because I just have fun playing it as almost like a berserker.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So yeah, that was our game of the year. Did we want to talk about what we're excited for next year? Does anybody have anything to bring up for that?
Yeah, we can talk about a few things.
Yeah.
Anyone want to start?
I have to remember which games because I was staring at them when they got released. I just have to remember names, so don't do me first.
So I think Avowed is supposed to come out next year. We've talked about that one a lot on podcasts, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I am very curious how Avowed's going to turn out. Obsidian basically hit it out of the park for me with the Outer Worlds, and it shows just how much of Bethesda's magic is gone with how quickly Starfield came and went and nobody cared about it. The other big game I'm really excited for is Black Myth Wukong, because I really like the idea of a Journey to the West style, like Soulsborne kind of game. And I think it was supposed to come out this year and then it got delayed, but I think at the Game Awards it got a release date, and I think it's like August next year or something. That's definitely a game I'm really excited for.
All right, cool. Yeah, I don't know that I have like much in mind for 2024. I mean, most years I think it's just a lot of the stuff that was supposed to come out the year before and got delayed. So like I think like Nine Souls is supposed to come out next year. That's the new one from the studio that made Detention and Devotion, which I haven't played. But I think it's like their first game that isn't just a straight up horror game, but is somehow still just as gory. Like having like one of the cutest protagonists.
An honorable mention for me. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
No, yeah, I'm pretty much done. An
honorable mention for me that just popped in my head because I talked about it. I'm pretty sure like every single podcast for years. It technically came out this year, and that's Sea of Stars. The reason why it wasn't in my Game of the Year discussion is because I haven't played it yet. Because despite me being super excited for it for literally years, The Messenger is one of my top 10 games of all time, and that's the same studio. It came out pretty much the exact same time that Baldur's Gate 3 came out. So Baldur's Gate 3 for me was that game where, because I already had it, I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a try and see what I think. And then I didn't play anything else since. So I haven't played Sea of Stars yet, even though it came out this year. And that's something I'm looking forward to finally diving into next year.
I am just trying to find the name of one specific one. Hold on. I'm still trying to look for it.
Panty Party 7.
Championship Edition.
Turbo Edition.
Oh, the other one is I forgot what it was called, but I will see if I actually end up getting anything that can play it. But the Jurassic Park game they announced at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
That looks really good.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. There's another podcast I really like. I don't want to call them out for it, but every single host on that podcast was like, that game looks like shit. They didn't show anything. And then when one of them brought up that, Alien Isolation basically had a shot for shot the same trailer, and look at how good that turned out. Every single one of them were like, yeah, but that one's different because it's Alien. And it's, guys, I normally really like you, but you just, the game could suck. I'm not trying to defend it like prematurely, but I'm so excited for a Jurassic Park survival horror action-y kind of game that isn't just trying to be like a park builder and it's a Jurassic Park game, not a Jurassic World game. And I feel like there's a vibe difference there. Just right immediately for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell? I'm still trying to fucking find this goddamn. Hold on.
It doesn't exist.
They have. No, it's there somewhere.
It was a figment of your imagination.
No one's ever really made a video game.
I'm super excited for it.
What's a Mario?
Okay, so, well, I'm still staring for this one. I'll talk about one I'm super excited for, but that's Homeworld 3. Like, holy shit. I'm so excited for another Homeworld game.
Has that not come out yet? I feel like that was announced a long time ago.
They recently did a... oh, there it is. I found it. So they recently did, kind of like a trial... what do you call it? It's...
A demo?
So they basically... Yeah, a demo. Where they let people play through one of the game modes that they're going to have for Homeworld 3. Which looked fun. I'm excited. But for the actual game, like, hell yes, please. I really love Homeworld. I really love that style. It's such a fun, and you don't really see many space RTSs that use like, that actually feels like it's in space. Like, I love Star Wars Emperor at War so much, but like your space combat's on like there's no Z axis in that. It's more like a naval than it is like actual space. Even though I love it, it's a fucking fantastic game. But another one I'm excited for, which I am fingers crossed it's going to be this year. But Sanctuary Shattered Sun. So again, it's another real-time strategy game. I fucking love Supreme Commander and Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. The second Supreme Commander was not as good. It was kind of disappointing for me, but it was still a pretty okay game. But like this one is like they're legitimately trying to make the next version of like what they see like what's like the next version of Supreme Commander. Like the setting's different, but they're taking all the like beats from Supreme Commander and they're adding in a whole of other things. Like, so this game takes place basically in a giant Dyson sphere. And I remember one point one of the guys talking about it was like one of the super weapons you can get is literally cracking part of the Dyson sphere open. Just yeet your enemies away. Which that sounds interesting. See how that works out. So there's a lot of stuff that they're saying that they're trying to do in this one. I'm hoping it works out. There's a lot of games that I do play now, like 0K and Bar, which are fun games. They're in the same style, but they don't have that feel. There's still something missing in them. And I'm hoping that Sanctuary Shattered Sun will kind of be like that thing I'm looking for, because I think one of the reasons why Bar and 0K aren't really hitting me as much as I'm hoping this one does is because they released and they've been trying to kind of build their game while other people have been playing it. And I think they're getting too caught up in trying to balance things that the community wants and is taking away from their time and ability to actually add more stuff. So, where those games are fun, I think they're getting a little caught up into like managing the community and managing the players over continuing to build and add the games themselves. Aside from that, another game which I absolutely love, and I think I can't remember if it was a game of the year at one point for me, or if I at least super gushed over it during one of our podcasts, but Into the Radius. So it's a VR game. It's such a fun game to play. It's just beautiful to like. It's beautiful in its own apocalyptic way. I really have a love for like this like scenery of like with things frozen or stuff frozen in time is just fascinating for me. I also really love liminal spaces. Um, so it really plays into that how you see like train tracks flying up into the air or like buildings half blown out or like stuff like that is just an odd kind of morbid beauty for me.
Morbid
Seeing
beauty.
like these moments of like the last seconds um just has like this odd beauty for me. And Into the Radius is also such a fun game. It has a lot of like Stalker. Oh yeah, that's another game, by the way, the new Stalker game that's apparently going to be coming out. I'm going to play that. But Into the Radius has that because it's VR, so I get even more into it because oh my god, I can actually fucking stare at this thing. What's that thing at the distance? Oh god, it's coming for my face. That's why I still haven't played Alex. I'm terrified of things charging at my face, so I'm scared of head
You
crabs.
talked about Half-Life Alex for years, and then you got the headset and you still haven't played it. That was like 2 or 3 years ago you got the headset.
I'm making a
You replay every
like,
Half-Life game every year.
I know. And I swear I'm going to do Alex this year because I think Into the Radius has finally helped me get over the whole shit jumping at me issue because that fucking stuff scared the crap out of me when I first played Into the Radius. Like I cannot handle things jumping at me. But yeah, so they finally finished the first one. They announced that they're working on the second version of it or like the second game. And already a lot of the stuff like how they talked about one of the things that they are putting into it that I'm excited for is that they're actually doing taking in consideration mods and multiplayer right from the start, because a lot of people have been trying to mod the game, get multiplayer working, and I think they did a smart thing in which they said the amount of time it would take for us to actually like make it so mods and multiplayer can easily slip into this game would just not be worth it. So they're just going to put it into the second one and they're going to build around it instead of having to like jack it in halfway or like when they're almost done. So I'm excited. I don't know when the second one of Into the Radius is going to be releasing, but I am super pumped for when it does. I doubt it'll be next year unless it's super late into the year, but you never know. They could release a beta one and I'll play that to a shit ton because it's such a fun game. Fucking love that game. Also, apparently I was super funny to watch playing that game for my first run through of it. Because I was so paranoid, but also because I played H3VR so much, I'm very good with VR guns. And so the people watching me play the game, I was like, there's so much shit happening in this building. Like there are all these like things calling out to me and all these noises everywhere. I'm standing in this building trying to loot, and I have a I think it was like an AK in one hand and like I can't remember what pistol was in the other. I'm like covering my doors as I'm backing through. I'm like, nobody come through these doors. I'm gonna fucking murder you. It's so creepy, and I was just so panicking at that point. But it was so fun, and I really, really want to play more of that game. So I'm super happy that they're doing another one. Sorry. So that's my rants. I'm excited for Homeworld 3, whenever the fuck Sanctuary will release, and then Into the Radius 2.
All right.
I also forgot about Tales of Kenzera. That looks cool.
Oh, is there another?
It's a Metroidvania style game. It kind of looks like the Prince of Persia game that's coming out, which also looks really good. But the Prince of Persia one is not going to be on Steam, so I'm probably not going to pick it up until it someday comes to Steam.
Oh yeah.
But I really like me some Metroidvanias.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that's everything from us.
Yeah.
If you have any thoughts on the games we mentioned, or if you want to talk about your own favorites of the year, go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us we're idiots. And yeah, watch us play Metroid 2 and Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
If you want to just watch Metroid, that's okay.
No, you should definitely watch Baldur's Gate because it's funny.
Listen.
How clueless Tom is. It's funny to me. There's so many moments they ask me something. I'm just like, oh, okay. Trying to explain stuff as I go along.
No. All right, but that's it from us.
Yeah. So really quickly before we sign off, I just want to have a little announcement for something that's happening on the channel.
Oh boy.
We're gonna take the month of January off again, like we did last year. This year it's not because it's necessary. We do have stuff recorded that's coming down the pipeline. Last year we had things recorded, but I ran out of time because the holidays took me away from my ability to edit for quite a while, and so we had nothing to go up in the new year. This year I decided I just want a very brief break. So I deliberately chose not to do any editing over the holiday season. So I decided we're going to take January off for uploads. We're still going to record and render and upload behind the scenes as frequently as we normally would, but there won't be any new videos going up until I believe January 29th was the date I picked. And then, yeah, that week uploads will resume as normal. I'm hoping that'll give us the ability to record something like Metal Gear and get it done within the span of the month so that it can resume uploading until it's finished. But yeah, it's not actually necessary this year. I just wanted to do it. And I think it's going to help get a backlog going again, because that was quite convenient last year when we were recording things in February that weren't going to go up until June, because it made it really easy to predict when we were going to need to record again.
Yeah.
So,
all right, cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that here. I'm going to try to upload this so that it'll go up as close to midnight as possible on New Year's Eve. So presumably it's about to be New Year. So Happy New Year, and here's to 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
I guess we'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.